Welcome back. So we have a ridiculously long day of hockey tomorrow, and 14 games, but at least they're spread out. So there's three games really early in the morning for me. So 9:30 in the morning Pacific, 12:30 in the afternoon Eastern. So if you're in Europe, you're in luck. You're gonna watch four out of these six teams should be in the playoffs, and then there's a game 2.5 hours later, another one an hour after that. So odds are I'm going to put together a video where I review these three games first. These two probably get their own board. I don't think I'll have time to do a video on those games unless they get done early. And then that'll leave me with 1, 2, 3, 4 starting at the same time here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 later games. So it's workable. It's more workable than those midweek days really grind me down. All right, 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. The Pittsburgh Penguins in against the Boston Bruins. So this is the first of two meetings these teams will have over the next week. On February 8th, Pittsburgh wins 4-2. The Penguins are 41, 22, and 11. Last 10 games, they're 4-5-1, but they won their last game. They are 5 points back of the New York Rangers. They're 5 points ahead of Washington. On the Boston side, they're 45, 24, and 5. The last 10 games, they're 5-5. They've lost 3 in a row. Boston's picking the wrong time of year to get cold. I understand there's injuries. I get it. People keep bringing up, well, there's injuries. Right. But what this means is that Boston is definitely a team that's vulnerable to injury. We've seen other teams do very well when they get injuries and get some wins. Boston doesn't have the depth to absorb these injuries. So they're 3 points back at Tampa. They're 3 points ahead of Washington. There is the very real possibility they could end up in the second wild card spot. 12:30 Eastern, and that's Pacific time, or PM, I should say, and 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. The Detroit Red Wings and the New York Rangers. Their games have been close so far. We'll see if the third meeting is as well. February 17th, Detroit wins 3-2 in a shootout. March 30th, the Rangers win 5-4 in overtime. So we'll see if that stays true. For Detroit, they're 29, 35, and 10. Last 10 games, they're 3, 4, and 3. They did win their last game. Nedeljkovic was fantastic. They're 3 points clear of Buffalo. They're 6 points ahead of Ottawa. On the Rangers side, they're 48, 21, and 6. Their last 10 games, they're 7, 2, and 1. They did win their last game. They're 2 points back at Carolina. They are 5 points clear of Pittsburgh. So for the New York Rangers, this is going to be an interesting run down to the wire, and we'll see in the playoffs what they can do. But I do expect people to, if they end up playing Pittsburgh, I expect people to pick the Rangers. But while I know that there are Leaf fans that say, well, we'd rather see Pittsburgh than Tampa, I don't know. Pittsburgh's overdue for a run. So 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, the Nashville Predators at home against Chicago. Nashville's won 2 of the first 3. November 7th, Chicago wins 2-1 in overtime. On December 17th, Nashville wins 3-2 in overtime. In the most recent game on January 1st, Nashville wins 6-1, thus the no mercy magnet, because that's a 5-goal differential. For Chicago, they're 25, 38, and 11. Over their last 10, they're 2-6-2. They did win their last game, which was a shootout win over San Jose. They're 8 points back of San Jose, and they're 9 points clear of Seattle. So they're pretty firmly entrenched in their position in the standings. Nashville, 42, 27, and 5. Their last 10 games, they're 5, 4, and 1. They lost their last game. They are perilously close to falling out of the playoffs. They're tied with Dallas. They're 2 points clear of Vegas. Although if Vegas jumps into the playoffs, they may do so at the expense of the Kings. But if you're Nashville, you want to keep the guessing out of it. And when they do their reverse retro, I would be perfectly fine with this. This is a reverse, so a white version of this with the checkerboards. I think a white version of this would be fantastic. Just throwing that out there. All right, so I do think Nashville should get that win over Chicago because they need it. 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, the Minnesota Wild in against the St. Louis Blues. St. Louis has won both meetings so far this year. January 1st, it was a 6-4 win. April 8th, it was a 4-3 overtime win for the Blues. For Minnesota, they're 46, 21, and 6. Over their last 10, they're 7, 1, and 2. They've won 3 in a row. They're tied with St. Louis. They're 9 points clear of Nashville. On the St. Louis side, 44, 20, and 10. Last 10 games, they're 9, 0, and 1. They've won 7 in a row. So this has game of the day written all over it, and it's not going to have a lot of competition for when it's playing. They're tied with Minnesota, and they're 9 points clear of Nashville. So these teams battling it out for second. Whoever wins this game probably ends up being second in the division. Then at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific, the Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers. Odd time of the game for that, or odd time of the day, I should say, for that. But sure, Edmonton's won 2 out of 3, though Vegas won the most recent matchup on October 22nd. It's a 5-3 win for the Oilers. On November 27th is a 3-2 win for the Oilers. February 8th was a 4-0 win for Vegas. On the Vegas front, they're 41-29-5. Their last 10, they're 7-2-1. They're coming off that big win over Calgary. I would expect Logan Thompson in this game as well. They're 2 points back of Dallas and Nashville. They're 1 point back of LA. So again, there's the possibility they jump past LA into the playoffs rather than Dallas or Nashville. The Oilers are 43-26-6. The last 10 games, they're 7-2-1. They won their last game over the Nashville Predators. And that was after an embarrassing loss against Minnesota. So they're 7 points back of Calgary. They're 4 points clear of LA, and they're 5 points ahead of Vegas. So Vegas looking to both jump LA and get a little bit closer to Edmonton to make things more interesting in that division. So we'll see if they get that done. Then we get to the evening games, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 Pacific start time between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Buffalo Sabres. On January 22nd, Buffalo wins 6-3. The third and final meeting between these teams will be on April 17th. So they meet on Saturday and Sunday. So big back-to-back. The Flyers are 23-40-11. Last 10 games, they're 2-8. They've lost 3 in a row in regulation. They're 1 point back in New Jersey. They're 6 points ahead of Montreal. On the Buffalo side, they're 27-38-11. Last 10 games, they're 4-5-1. They lost their last game. They're 3 points back of Detroit, and they're 3 points ahead of Ottawa. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start time between Washington and Montreal. We'll see if Carey Price starts back-to-back nights. Washington's won both meetings. November 24th, it was a 6-3 win. February 10th, it was a 5-2 win. Washington is 41-23-10 overall. Last 10 games are 6-4. They lost their last game. They're 3 points behind Boston, 5 points behind Pittsburgh. On the Montreal front, they're 20-44-11. Last 10 games are 2-7-1. They've lost 4 in a row. 6 points back of Philly. So pretty much certainty they're going to finish at the bottom of the East, right near the bottom of or at the bottom of the standings overall, and then we'll see what they do should they win the draft lottery, right? 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start time between Toronto and Ottawa, the fourth and final meeting. Toronto's won 2 of these, including one that gets the No Mercy magnet. So October 14th, Ottawa wins 3-2. October 16th, Toronto won 3-1, and then the Leafs beat them 6-0 on January 1st. So January 1st, the reason for both of the magnets on the board that are of the No Mercy variety. Toronto's 48-20-6. Last 10 games are 8-1-1. They won their last game. They're 4 points clear of Tampa. They're 7 points clear of Boston. On the Ottawa side, they're 28-40-6. Last 10 games, they're 5-4-1. They've won 2 in a row. They're 3 points back of Buffalo. They're 4 points ahead of New Jersey. And if you take Ottawa lightly, they can beat you. That being said, Toronto should be familiar with Ottawa. That should not be a problem. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start time between Winnipeg and the Tampa Bay Lightning. And for Winnipeg, rough night tonight with the loss against Florida and their playoff hopes, which were already really fading, look to be gone. They're 35-29-11. Last 10 games, they're 5-4-1, losing tonight. 8 points back of Dallas with 7 games left. The Tampa Bay Lightning 45-21-8. Last 10 games, they're 5-3-2. They won their last game. 4 points back of Toronto and 3 points ahead of Boston. So Tampa Bay should end up finishing third. We shall see. 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific start time between San Jose and Dallas. December 11th, San Jose wins 2-1. On April 2nd, Dallas wins 5-4. For San Jose, they're 29-33-11. Last 10 games, they're 1-6-3. 2 losses in extra time, their most recent games. They're 3 points back of Anaheim. They're 8 points ahead of Chicago. On the Dallas front, they're 42-27-5. Last 10 games, they're 6-2-2. They had an extra time loss against Minnesota in their last outing. They're tied with Nashville and 2 points clear of the Vegas Golden Knights, who again might be trying to jump LA instead. But if they did, that would mean that LA is the team that Dallas has to worry about. 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific start time between Carolina and Colorado. This could be game of the night material too. March 10th, Carolina won this meeting 2-0 at home. Carolina's 48-19-8. Last 10 games, they're 5-4-1. They did lose their last game. They're 2 points ahead of the Rangers and 7 points ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins. On the Colorado front, they're 54. Sorry, I almost took away 10 wins. Terrible. 54-14-6. Their last 10 games, they're 9-0-1. They've won 8 in a row. They're 16 points ahead of the Minnesota Wild. So, pretty good chance they're going to win the division. Might clinch it tomorrow. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific start time between Arizona and Calgary. This is exactly what Calgary needs after a drubbing at the hands of Vegas. Arizona has lost both meetings, both by a score of 4-2 to Calgary on February 2nd and March 25th, respectively. For Arizona, they're 22-47-5. Last 10 games, they're 2-7-1. They've lost 5 in a row in regulation. They didn't really show much in Vancouver. We'll see what they show in Calgary. They're 3 points back of San Jose in last place in the West. On the Calgary front, they're 45-20-9. Last 10 games, they're 6-3-1. They lost their last game. They're 7 points ahead of Edmonton, and they're 11 points ahead of the LA Kings. 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific start time between New Jersey and Seattle. New Jersey won the first meeting on October 19th by a score of 4-2. We'll see what happens with this one. New Jersey's 26-42-6. Last 10 games, they are 3-6-1. They did lose their last game in regulation. They're 4 points back of Ottawa and 1 point ahead of the Philadelphia Flyers. Seattle's 23-44-6. Last 10 games, they're 4-6. They lost 2 in a row. They're 9 points back of Chicago. They're 3 points ahead of the Arizona Coyotes. 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific start time between the Columbus Blue Jackets and the LA Kings. And this is where when people talk about, well, LA's final 6 games are against non-playoff teams, it doesn't mean that Columbus is just going to roll over. LA did win the first meeting on March 4th by a score of 4-3 in overtime, but Columbus is 35-33-6. Respectable record. You've got to treat them with some respect. They're 3-4-3 in their last 10. They have won 2 in a row coming into this game. They are 3 points back of the New York Islanders. They're 8 points ahead of Detroit. On the LA side, they're 39-27-10. Last 10 games, they're 4-5-1. They lost their last game in regulation. They're 4 points back of the Edmonton Oilers. They're 1 point ahead of Vegas. They need to start winning, and they need to start winning now since Vegas does have a game in hand, I believe, right? So Vegas does have, 6? Yeah, sure. I'll leave that as it is. Sure they do. Yeah, they have 1 game in hand. All right, there you go. Let me know your winners in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. It's going to be really interesting to see how these games go down tomorrow as we get closer and closer to the playoffs. And of course, remembering Sunday and Monday, I'm going to be out of the house. So tomorrow is going to be a crazy day, and I'm rewarding myself by being out of the house on both Sunday and Monday. All right. Thank you guys so much for all your support. If you haven't already hit like and subscribe, go ahead, do both. That's fine. Try to hit both at the same time. I think that'll work. But thank you guys again. I will talk to you very soon.